willkommen im Namen der Viennale und des Gartenbaukinos zu einem, glaube ich, sehr großen, sehr schönen Moment für uns alle, der Besuch von David Lynch hier in Wien. Wir haben alle sehr kurzfristig davon erfahren, deshalb haben auch Sie so kurzfristig davon erfahren. Es sind trotzdem sehr, sehr viele Menschen heute gekommen. Ich freue mich sehr, dass dieses Event hier passiert, in unserem schönen Kino mit Unterstützung der Viennale. Und ich bitte jetzt zu mir auf die Bühne Herrn Bob Roth. Das ist ein enger Mitarbeiter und Freund von David Lynch, der mit ihm jetzt unterwegs ist und der kann Ihnen mehr zu dem heutigen Abend sagen. Bob Roth.
On behalf of David, it's a real pleasure to be here in this beautiful city, in this great country, in this historic, spectacular cinema. David will be answering your questions for about 1 hour. It's great. He has no prepared speech, however. He just wants to answer your questions, so we can't be shy. There are microphones that are being passed around, so if you have a question, just raise your hand, and then he'll speak. And if no one has a question, then he'll stand here. And as he likes to say, it will then be an early afternoon for all of us. David Lynch has a passion for what he calls the doing. The doing of film, the doing of photography, of painting, of music, of sculpture, of woodworking. He has a passion for the doing. But David also has a passion for what he calls the big fish, the big ideas, the ideas that he captures at the quiet depths of his mind that inform those remarkable, extraordinary, magical films and paintings and all the other doings. And finally, David has a passion for what he calls diving within, for sitting down and closing his eyes and allowing his active mind to just quiet down and dive within to that ocean of unbounded creativity and intelligence which lies within all of us through meditation, through transcendental meditation. And that experience, he says, gives rise to those thoughts, those ideas, and the doing. This afternoon, we have a very rare opportunity to ask David Lynch questions about his doings, about his ideas, and about his diving within. So without any further ado, please join us in welcoming to Vienna the great David Lynch.
Great to be here in Vienna with all of you. Good afternoon. And before we get going on questions, I'd like to introduce to you two great souls. First, the world's foremost educator in the field of consciousness-based education, Dr. Bevan Morris, right here. Second, the new director of the new Invincible Austria University featuring consciousness-based education, Dr. Lothar Krenner. I can hardly see you all. You're in the kind of a dark area. Yes?
Yes. Oh. Okay, great that you're here in Vienna. I would like to ask you if you would like to say something about your private thoughts about time and how you use this kind of thoughts and experiences into your films.
Time.
Yes.
Time is the most fantastic thing. They say time is a conception to measure eternity. It's interesting to think about time. You can go forwards and backwards in cinema. And cinema, I always say, is sound and picture moving together in time. So this thing of how fast or slow it goes, it's so much like music in many ways. And when things are introduced, when they come back, and just the flow of time is a thing that cinema works with. And that's something I think about, but all this thinking is based on the ideas that come. So if an idea comes and it has something to do with, when you get an idea, you see it, you feel it, you hear it, and it indicates how to go. And you can fall in love with these ideas for the idea, and you can also fall in love for the way cinema could translate that idea. And whenever you're going along translating the idea, you're feeling that idea, and it indicates the speed, sometimes very, very fast and violent, sometimes very, very slow. It indicates the loud and the soft to get it to feel correct based on the idea. Nice afternoon. It was a beautiful snowstorm this morning. Yes?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh, now there's two questions coming. Wait 1 second. Yes?
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. It's me. I want you to ask, you've always the concept of mise en abîme in your film?
The concept of what?
Mise en abîme, it's a film in the film, and this concept is always like a reflection of the cinema itself. And compared Mulholland Drive to Inland Empire, for me, Mulholland Drive was more the director's view of the mixture of illusion and reality, and Inland Empire is like the actress herself, Laura Dern, who is in between the illusion and the real. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this your impression too, or?
Yeah. I don't really talk about those kind of things, and the reason is the idea comes, and for me, as I always say, the idea doesn't come all at once. The whole story doesn't come boom. It comes in little fragments. So for a long time, I haven't got a clue what this thing is going to be. Fragment comes, and it is like catching fish. You're going along, desiring an idea, and this desire, I say, is like a bait. So you have patience, you stay on guard, you desire an idea, and more often than not, the ideas flow in, swim in, and you catch them. Sometimes you catch one that you fall in love with, and then you write that idea down, and you write it down with words, and you write it down in such a way that when you read it later, the idea comes back fully. Another fragment comes in, and another fragment comes in because you're focusing on this one fragment that you love, and focusing brings in the others, and the thing starts going. And then you see something forming, but you may not know what it is or what it means. But you think about it, and in thinking about it, a meaning comes. Cinema can be very concrete. A film can be seen by an audience where everybody has more or less the same interpretation. But just like life, cinema can show abstractions. The more abstract a thing gets, the more interpretations there are. And each one is valid. People have a way of coming to their own interpretation, and it's valid for them and valid for me.
Could you give us an example of ideas that you've got from the external world, not just the internal world?
Yeah, you know, the internal world is a world you visit not to get ideas, but to visit the transcendent level, the deepest level of life, that unbounded, infinite, eternal ocean of consciousness, modern science's unified field. And when you experience that deepest level, you enliven it and you grow. And whatever size ball of consciousness you had to begin with, that thing starts expanding. And you grow in consciousness, and you grow in all these positive qualities of consciousness. And I always say, people don't really think so much about consciousness, but if you didn't have consciousness, you wouldn't exist. Or if you did exist, you wouldn't know it. Consciousness, the I amness of life. And we can only say I am because of consciousness. And it's tied to intelligence, creativity, happiness, love, energy, power. It's tied to dynamic peace. And there's an ocean of it. And that ocean, at the source of thought, the base of matter and mind, is infinite intelligence, infinite creativity, infinite happiness, infinite energy, power, love, dynamic peace, understanding, appreciation, all positive, superpower at the source of thought, base of matter and mind. And Transcendental meditation is a technique. It's like a key to open the door to that level. You experience it, you enliven it, you infuse it, and it grows. So you come out refreshed, more understanding, more appreciation, more energy, more creativity flowing, and then you go around and get your ideas. So the ideas come, and I'll tell you, I say what I was just saying this morning about Blue Velvet. For instance, Blue Velvet, I was going along, zero ideas. And I happened to listen once again to Bobby Vinton's version of the song Blue Velvet, a song that I didn't particularly care for when it first came out. But on hearing it again, a mood comes from it. It holds some kind of promise, but I don't know what it is. I just say I'm gravitating to this song, there's something in there. The next thing came along was just a mental image of red lips and green lawns at night. But the lips had a feeling, and the green lawns had a feeling. And that feeling married to that song. And it started just kind of talking. And the next thing I know, popping into my mind, is an ear crawling with ants, severed in a vacant lot, and a man finding it. And it goes like that. It just goes like that. One thing hooks to another, and the thing starts forming. And then one day, there's the finished script, which is a blueprint for the film. It's not the film, it's a blueprint. And you translate that. Yes, I promised you. Yeah. Thank you. He's asking, what do I think about Zen meditation? And are all meditations the same? And do they do the same thing for us? There are many, many, many forms of meditation. And I say all the valid forms have as their goal enlightenment, the full potential of the human being. Human beings, the most exquisite beings on earth, huge potential we have. Enlightenment, total fulfillment, liberation, total freedom, huge potential. Higher states of consciousness can be unfolded. There's meditations that deal with concentration, contemplation, there's relaxation techniques, there's thinking of the self while you do things, all different kind of things. But Transcendental meditation, the unique thing about it is that Maharishi gives entry from your first meditation to the deepest level, the transcendent, pure consciousness, immutable, immortal, eternal, infinite, unbounded consciousness, out of which the entire universe comes. Modern science's unified field, they say everything that is a thing has emerged from this field, which is the unity of all the particles and forces of creation. Visiting that deepest level, getting wet with that twice a day, means that you're going to unfold that, expand that consciousness, all those values, and grow and grow and grow and unfold your full potential, your enlightenment. Up until recently, you could say the Zen meditators or this kind of meditation, they all said, man, oh man, what a beautiful experience I'm having. This other bunch says the same thing. The other bunch says the same thing. Whoa, man, I got so deep and it's so beautiful. And everybody thinks they're talking about the same thing. And it would be beautiful if everybody was talking about the same thing. But now, with brain research, on the EEG machine, they can put different kinds of meditators on this machine and see what it's doing. And they found out, lo and behold, when a person transcends and truly experiences this deepest level, which is beyond thought, there's no thoughts in it. Thoughts come from it, but it's just pure consciousness, unbounded consciousness. When you experience that, it's the only experience in life that lights the full brain. Total brain coherence. First time they've seen this. Concentration form of meditation. The tiny part of the brain that deals with concentration, very lively, big. Some of these meditators have been meditating for years, super concentration, but no transcending. So they're not getting to the treasury. They're not infusing that gold. They're staying near the surface. Huge field, the field of relativity. So many levels, just like there's so many levels of matter. This unified field, all the pure consciousness is at the base of that. And experiencing that rapidly unfolds the full potential. It may take a long time. It's a huge thing, supreme enlightenment, but it goes quickly in the big picture.
One of the important sentences in your education program is that you can't fight violence with violence. What then about this lot of violence we find in your movies?
Yes, it's not about fighting violence. I always say, first of all, I get this question everywhere. David, if you're so happy and so, interested in peace, how come these films? Films reflect the world in which we live. And stories throughout time, all the great stories, and the stories in the future will have contrasts. Human nature struggles. Lots and lots of torment, highs and lows, intermingling of characters, a whole world. But the artist doesn't have to suffer to show suffering. And have the suffering on the screen, not in your life. Have the suffering in the book, but not in your life. It's a big, big, big secret. And there is a thing saying negativity is just like darkness. And then you look at darkness and you say, well, what is darkness really? And you find it's nothing. It's the absence of something. So no matter how dark the night has been, when the sun comes up, without even trying, darkness is removed. Automatically. You ramp up this light of unity, automatically, just like the sun removes darkness, negativity dissolves. Don't fight the darkness. Don't even worry about the darkness. Just turn on the light.
I really like your talking about consciousness in the middle of the town, which has been really famous as the place which launched the concept of unconsciousness. But what really interests me is how are you dealing personally with this fishing of desires for ideas, or ideas, fishing for ideas of desires. As I saw the Inner Land, I'm particularly actually stressing this point of floating through the time. Have you ever had, when you were talking now about this violence, it is not just external violence, it's also these violences which we have, like fishing all these kinds of ideas and fearing them and trying to survive them. How are you personally dealing with them?
Oh, that's a good question. The subconscious is subconscious. It's not, we're not aware of it. We might be aware of the pressure and everything there, but when you expand consciousness, you're making the subconscious or unconscious conscious, and you keep on expanding, it can go infinite. So you're making the subconscious conscious, the dark part, lighter and lighter and lighter. We have all these things in us, these stresses and impurities and all kinds of garbage. And this puts a big thing internally on us. When you meditate, when you get down in close to transcending, and when you transcend, you're so deep and settled, the physiology also settles down. And they know from research it settles down to a state 3 times deeper than the deepest sleep. Huge, deep, deep, deep rest for the physiology. And big stresses can unwind. I picture it like barbed wire. Big chunks of barbed wire, garbage, can dissolve in this deep rest. So you're cleaning the machine, getting rid of this garbage, and nobody else put our garbage in, we put our garbage in. Sometime it's got to be cleaned. The purer the vehicle, the nicer it is, the clearer the experience of transcending. So it's making the subconscious conscious, it's cleaning the machine, infusing gold, seeing the heavy weight of negativity lifting. Anxieties and stresses and fears and anger and depression and sorrow, they just squeeze that conduit of creativity. They squeeze it down, and it can't flow so good. When that really starts lifting, and it lifts automatically, it's not something you have to think about. It just lifts, and you can work in tremendous freedom. That's my experience. After the first 2 weeks of meditating, I had a big anger before I started. Was not a happy camper in that department, and I took this anger out on my first wife each and every morning. Make a life like a hell. And I just couldn't help it. I was just filled with anger. 2 weeks after starting, she comes to me and she says, "What's going on?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And she says, "This anger, where did it go?" I didn't even realize it. Lift away.
David.
Yes.
I'm also from Los Angeles, and I'm back here. And I find myself defending my city. I mean, I live here now. And you've used Los Angeles as a backdrop in quite a number of your movies, and I was just wondering if you could share some thoughts and ideas about LA.
Sure. I love Los Angeles. I came to Los Angeles from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Philadelphia is a city they call the city of brotherly love. Now, Philadelphia has just been named the murder capital of the United States. And when I lived there, it was even worse. A city of fear, corruption, insanity, the worst city I've ever been to. But I kind of loved the place, and but I had so much fear in there from Philadelphia when I arrived in LA. I arrived in LA at night around 11:30, and when I woke up the next morning and stepped outside, I was blasted by this Southern California sunlight. And it was the most beautiful, heavenly, intense happiness coming from this light. And I just stood in a sidewalk just basking in this light. I couldn't believe it. LA is not a tall city, it's a spread out city. And in the atmosphere, you've got a feeling that you can do anything. It's a city that gives me the feeling of freedom. You can just feel, you can just be yourself and do anything. Get any kind of project going. It's a very creative feeling thing, and I think it comes from this light. In Los Angeles, they went there in the beginning, as everybody knows, because of this light, to make films. And so the golden age of Hollywood was there, and even today, going around in certain places, especially at night in the summer, you'll be going along and you'll smell that sweet smell of night jasmine, and the golden age of Hollywood will come right into your mind, and you'll go back in time and you can feel it. You can see these great giant cars going down Hollywood Boulevard in the golden days. It's very, very beautiful. And I think because we all end up in a place, and a place does talk to us. So a lot of ideas came out of there. Hence, the last two films have been sort of about a little slice of that Hollywood life. Yes?
David Lynch, could you tell us something about your pacifist activities?
My what activities?
Pacifist activities.
My pacifist activities are...
Yes. And how we can cope with the persons inside the Pentagon who switch off the light.
Yeah. There's lots and lots of well-wishers of humanity. There's lots and lots of people yearning for peace. Peace conferences, peace treaties, talking about peace, singing about peace, marching for peace. And the audience for this is like preaching to the choir, they say. Those listening are also yearning and also agreeing, but those not listening are, filled with anger, and sometimes rightly so, filled with the need of revenge, filled with hate. And what is going to undo that? What could possibly undo that? What really gets rid of the seeds of war, which is negativity? What could do that? I'm saying that there's an ancient and eternal knowledge, and this knowledge tells us that there is this deepest level of life. And this deepest level of life is peace, is dynamic peace, not a sleepy, dull peace that no one would want, but a dynamic, blissful, creative, energetic peace that destroys the enmity in an enemy, that dissolves negativity, that burns the seeds of war, and brings real peace when it is enlivened. When it is enlivened. How do you enliven it? You don't imagine it enlivened. You don't pray for it. If you pray for something on the surface, it's like sending an envelope with no address, no stamp. The deeper you can pray, the more power it has. If you could pray at the deepest level, prayer, they say, is answered before it even gets out of your mouth. But we're not getting it that way. It needs to be enlivened, and there are technologies. This group practice of advanced techniques of meditation enlivens so much of the spirit of unity and radiates it out, because the group, and it doesn't have to be a big group, there's so much power in this unified field. And as my friend Dr. John Hagelin says, who is one of the greatest quantum physicists, this deepest level of unity moves isotropically at the speed of light. It just goes when it's enlivened, everywhere. And depending on the size of the group. Now, in Austria, you only need a group of 300 people to change the environment, to dissolve this negativity, to destroy enmity in any enemy. Invincibility, this new university, Invincible Austria University, invincible not in any military way, invincible with dynamic peace, so powerful that literally no harm could come from within the country, and nothing negative, no bad thing could come from outside to harm Austria. Dynamic peace, the power of this field of unity, power of bliss, unbelievable power. And it can be enlivened, and it can be enlivened. When it is, it will bring peace, real peace, absence of negativity, absence of the seeds of war.
David?
Yes.
David? This is kind of an academy speech for me that I'm able to speak to you, so I'm very nervous right now. And first of all, I want you to know me. My name is Bernie, because I know you, you're David, yeah?
I am David, and hello.
You're the most inspiring artist throughout all my life, yeah? I'm going to write my diploma about your work, and I just want to ask you about influences of German literature and philosophy in your movies.
Let's see. Well, not so much. I like, is Richard Strauss from here? I love Richard Strauss. I love the 4 last songs, and that was a big influence. I am not well read. I'm not a big cinema buff. Like I said, you know, my biggest influence in my life was the city of Philadelphia. So it's places and things and feelings and the ideas that come from those. The ideas that come. And what's weird is, no matter where we live, there's something that joins us together. And there's some things popping up in Austria, some things popping up in Los Angeles, some things popping up in Australia that we all can relate to. And cinema is this one beautiful language that goes all around the world. Doesn't matter what language you speak when you go around the street, but cinema talks to everybody. So beautiful.
Are you, dear Mr. Lynch, your films are very difficult to decipher, not impossible. Are you yourself able, and if so, when, to decipher, decode, to understand your own movies?
I always say that now people have what we know as intuition. Intuition, they say, is emotion and intellect working together, and it's a higher thing. So you see something in life that's abstract, and your mind, I say always that we're like detectives. We see things and we think about them like detectives. We see things that are like clues. Maybe this is this, maybe this is this. And we start thinking about things and we come to conclusions. Same thing in a film that's abstract or more abstract. You're seeing it, you're thinking about it, you're feeling it, and you're intuiting. So you come to some kind of conclusion for yourself, and each one is valid. And you know way more than you think you know. And I use this example that Sally comes out of the theater and she says, I don't have a clue what this film means. And maybe Sally is even a little bit upset. But she and Bob and Pete go get a cup of coffee. And they sit down, the coffee arrives, and Bob starts saying what he thinks the film meant. And before you know it, Sally is saying, no, 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 no. It didn't mean that. It meant this and this and this. Sally knew way more than she thought.
I have one question.
Sure.
I'm here.
I don't know where you are.
Right side.
See, the thing is, okay, I see you over there.
Yeah, okay, hello.
Okay, hello.
I have a question. You said movies reflecting our society.
I said what?
Movies reflecting our society.
Yeah, our world.
Our world, okay. And what do you say about handicapped people in movie or in the movie business or on TV business? Because the number of actors is growing, I think, in especially in movies, on TV. I see more handicapped people than before 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And what do you say about the stories that could be told about these people or the chances for handicapped people to get on screen?
We're all human beings It doesn't matter what shape or form, we're human beings. And human beings are always intermingling. There's stories that come out of that. There's room in cinema for every kind of human being. It depends on the idea, it depends on the story. And I've worked with, handicapped actors many times. Always, it's the same thing. They take this part, they make it real on a deep level, and we're boogieing. One more question and then we'll take a short break.
I just wanted to ask, you talked a lot about meditation and about coming from a point of happiness, I think. But
coming from a point of what?
Happiness or
yes.
Balance, or but is it also important to have an organic amount of negativity and anger in yourself?
Yeah, that's the greatest question. That's the greatest question. Artists think that they should be angry. Artists think they should have a little bit of melancholy. Artists think they should have a slight sorrow. And I say, this is just to get the chicks. If you're truly and truly angry, then that anger is like mind control. It occupies the thinking. Anger poisons the artist, poisons the environment. Very little room left to create. An artist truly depressed can't get out of bed. Zero creativity, no desire to create. A desire to commit suicide is there. If an artist is truly sad, crying and crying and crying, unless the artwork involves tears, they're not going to get much done. Real negativity kills creativity. And when that heavy weight of negativity lifts, you work in way more freedom. The difference is righteous anger, being really strongly for something or against something. Righteous anger is beautiful. Energy is beautiful. Intuition is beautiful. Knowing what you're going to do and having the energy and the creativity and the intuition to make it happen. Get those ideas flowing. You can still get very, very angry, but you can't hold on to it. You can get sad, but you can't hold on to it. It doesn't poison you, it doesn't kill you, it doesn't poison the environment. It's a joke to think the artist has to suffer. The artist doesn't have to suffer. The more suffering the artist does, the less work they're going to get done, the worse the work is going to be. It's just that way. It came from some kind of French thing, I think. But we're now in the unified field-based world. So it doesn't help the art. Understand negativity, understand the human condition, understand the thing, catch ideas, and have the power to realize them. Gonna take a short break and I'll see you back. Thank you, good to be back. Yes. I have a question. Do I watch my own movies?
No, that's not it.
Just a minute. There is one here. I'll just answer it very quickly. Not so much, but my younger son, who was 14, he's 15 now, but was 14, and he hadn't seen a lot of them, so I watched them with him. It was a good experience. Just a second. There's someone at the microphone.
Thank you. I've been waiting a long time to ask.
Where are you? Can you wave your hand?
I'm over here.
Ah, yeah.
Over here. And I would like to ask actually two questions. The first one is more important. The second one is trivia. I'm American. I've lived here 10 years, and I've watched the country, I think, decline a little bit in many ways. Right. I don't know whether you agree with that assessment or not, but I think it's clear that we have some problems. And I'm wondering whether you see your role as a filmmaker, how you see that role in that particular country today, with that amount of power and that amount of trouble. Whether you see that, whether you feel a sense of responsibility to say something particularly applicable or not.
Yeah, and I agree with you. that, you know, America has slid badly, slid into a bad thing. But, like I said earlier, don't fight the darkness, don't even worry about it. What I'm doing about things is trying to get these groups formed through universities or schools. There's a David Lynch Foundation for Consciousness-Based Education and World Peace, and we raise money to give Transcendental Meditation to any student who wants it anywhere, any school who wants it for all their students. And now there's 20 schools in America alone that have it for all their students. Some of these schools were the worst schools. It doesn't matter, it could be in the best schools too. The same thing will happen. But in the worst schools, and as everybody knows, schools, what's happening in schools are things that we never dreamed could happen. People are afraid to go to school. There's shootings in schools, stabbings, suicides, depression, pharmaceutical drugs, illegal drugs. How much learning is going on? Facts and figures, to go from one stress place to the workplace and get stressed even more. A nightmare, a real nightmare. And you give them this chance, this technique to dive within, enliven that deepest level, grow that ball of consciousness, and you turn things around. You get this little girl, and she's stressed, and her face is pinched and gray. And lots of people are worrying about her. They're thinking of things to make life better for her. But all the things they've been thinking about are surface cures, like pretty painted classrooms, more one-on-one time with the teacher, new school books, a pleasant, nice environment. But the problems are inside her. What happens at her home? What happens with her friends? All this pressure, what she sees on TV, pressure, stress. You give this little tiny girl, 10 years old, a chance to dive within and watch what happens. Boom, happiness comes up. Her grades go up. Her IQ goes up. Her creativity flows. She starts getting along with her fellow man. They start looking at her differently. There's something about her. They like her more. She starts listening to her teacher. Her teacher looks better. The whole thing goes transformed to super good. It's unbelievable, and it comes from the inside. They become self-assured, strong, and they go on to big success. Stress can't get them so much, and eventually can't get them at all. All these negative things lifting away from the little thing, and their life gets very, very good. It happens time and time and time again. There's schools in South America. I wonder if Dr. Bevan Morris could rattle off the... There's programs that are going on all around the world, and it's a very, very, very beautiful story. So it's not going to come from the politicians necessarily, unless they start, supporting these peace-creating groups and supporting this way to enliven this field of unity for the individual and for the society. It works. It's a unified field. The field that's there is eternal, always been there. It's for us human beings. And we can enliven it and enjoy life.
Have you given up on film as a...
No, I've given up on celluloid. I haven't given up on making stories, motion pictures.
What do you mean you've given up on celluloid?
The film cameras, film.
Digital video? Have
Digital
you given
video.
up on the motion picture as a means for social change?
No. Films maybe change a couple of people, but the real change comes from the deepest level. That will change things. That'll change a person. Surface things. It'll change somebody for a week, change them for a month, they'll be right back to the same old, same old. Yes, there's a question right here, just a sec. Hold on 1 second, there's a question coming from this gentleman right in front of me. What? the gentleman is asking about The Straight Story as a film that's considered different from my other films, but it's a little bit like The Elephant Man in a certain way. And The Straight Story is a story I didn't write. It was written by Mary Sweeney and John Roach, who came from Madison, Wisconsin, and loved that area of the world, heard about this guy, Alvin Straight, who rode this lawnmower to visit his brother. And they worked on this thing. I was with Mary Sweeney then, and I kept hearing about this story for 3 years. And every time they asked if I thought about, maybe liking to do it, I would say, no way. And then they finished it and gave me the script. And when you read a script, I say it's like organized ideas. You read a script and it comes to life in your mind and in your emotions. And it was the emotions of this thing that got me. And I couldn't believe it, but it got me so much. I said, I would really love to try to make this film. And this thing of emotion was what was driving it. How do you get this emotion from this language of film? Especially, it's just a few elements in this film going along. And it was I say it was my most experimental film, because people, I always say, if you see someone crying on the screen, many times the audience isn't crying. It doesn't transfer. So how do you get it? Something to transfer. And it's a combo of all the elements, and it's a tender, delicate little thing. And it has to do with the flow, it has to do with time, all those things. But that's why I say it was the most experimental, to try to get that thing to go into the audience and have them feel something from that. There was working with Richard Farnsworth was one of the greatest experiences. The story, the people in it, Sissy Spacek, a lot of great actors that never you hear from, but they were great actors from the area, and it was all in all a very beautiful experience for me.
Is there any particular traumatic thing that happened to you recently in order that you made a trip through Europe and now talk about prayer, peace, and meditation?
Was there a traumatic thing that started it? Yeah, there was a traumatic thing that started it. Hearing these stories about schools and seeing, things on TV, it's a trauma. It's a trauma. This world will give you a trauma. It'll give you stress. And I knew from my own experience what bliss feels like. They say bliss takes up where happiness leaves off. Bliss is physical, emotional, mental, spiritual happiness. And you can vibrate in it. It's so beautiful. And bliss is love. Love is intelligence. Intelligence is bliss. Bliss is energy. Energy is creativity. All one field with these different qualities. And you can enliven it. And I said, well, if it was enlivened by these groups, we would have peace. It's so powerful, so beautiful. No one believes it. Even though quantum physics says there's a unified field, it's not on any magazines, it's not on CNN, it's not anywhere. Unified field finally was discovered, and it matches Vedic science, science of consciousness, exactly. It's a real thing, and the technologies, Transcendental meditation is just a technology to get you to experience this thing easily and effortlessly. For human beings, we have a full potential, but we need to unfold it. You unfold it in this way. That's why throughout time, people have been sitting in meditation. I used to think they were wasting their time. What are they doing? I want to work, but this feeds the work. It feeds your life. Everything gets better. It brings peace.
I have a question. I heard that you made some 8 films without budget, the low budget. Which films are?
Which films are low budget?
Yeah.
In the big picture, every one of them is low budget. Dune was kind of a high budget, Dino said, but I know what Dune really cost, and it was a low budget film. You don't need a lot of money, especially now with digital, it's getting less and less. And you need ideas, is what you need. and you need energy, and you need intuition, these things, and you can do it. You get an idea, it tells you what you're going to do, and you just go do it. It doesn't take a lot of money, and when you have less money, some kind of restriction, you come up with solutions within your corral. If the corral is this size, you got to think in there. If it's bigger, you think in there. And it goes like that.
I'm very fascinated. Hello, I'm very fascinated in the way I'm here on your left.
You're over here?
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
About the way you use sound in your movies, and what would interest me is when do you start to think about sound? When you start to transcript your ideas into film language? And do you have a sound designer you always work with, or do you design your sounds by yourself? I heard.
Yeah.
How is this process?
Right. When you get an idea, as I said, it's like the scene. If it's a scene, if an idea sometimes comes, it's a scene. You see the scene in your mind. You feel the scene. You know the mood of it, the light of it. You see the characters. They come walking in. You hear the way they talk. You see the pace of the talk, where they sit, how they go, how they interact. And you hear it. And so it's when you shoot, you use that idea as a guide. And when you work with the actors, you use that idea as a guide. When you work with the prop department, you use that idea as a guide. Same thing in sound. And I always say there's 3 kind of sounds that I think about. Hard effects, like a door opening sound, but there's thousands of door opening sounds. But you try to get the one that marries best to the picture, that sits in there and works. There's abstract sounds that approach music. Those things give a feeling and give a mood, but it's based on the idea. It's not just willy-nilly. Same with the music. Get this piece of music that marries to the picture. And you can tell when it marries. It just jumps it. It lives now in there. It's working in there. And finally, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Mostly the sound is later, toward the mix after the film is edited, mostly. But a lot of times sounds are made up front, music is found up front, sometimes ideas come from music, so that piece of music is very important and it's found up front and it stays throughout. It goes mostly at the end though.
Hello, Mr.
Yes.
Over here.
Where are you, right there?
No, here. Just in front of you.
Oh yeah, okay.
Thank you so much for putting your knowledge at our disposition. And I would like to know specifically about the technique, if you can tell us a little bit how to do it and where to do it. And what do you think about post-war societies or damaged societies and work with them?
Okay. Like I said, Transcendental meditation is a mental technique, an ancient form of meditation that Maharishi Mahesh Yogi is bringing back for our time. Maharishi gives entry to the transcendent. You get a mantra. A mantra is a very specific sound, vibration, thought. Maharishi's mantra turns the awareness within. Always before, all the senses are pointed out. We look for happiness out there. Now the awareness is pointed within. And we naturally dive within through subtler levels of mind and intellect. At the border of intellect, boom, transcend, experience pure consciousness. Coming out of that, waves of bliss. And you transcend from your first meditation. Many times during each meditation, you meditate 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening, and go about your business. And why is it natural to dive and easy and effortless? Why? It's not a trying thing. Each deeper level of mind and intellect has more happiness, more charm, they say. So the awareness just wants to go. It's so pleasurable. And you just go, and then boom, you transcend. And they know, like I said, from brain research, when you transcend, full brain engaged, only experience in life that does it. And you grow that ball of consciousness, and you see life get better, and you feel the weight. I say the negativity is the suffocating rubber clown suit of negativity. We don't want to be clowns. We don't want to be in a suffocating rubber clown suit. It's horrible. This dissolves that clown suit, and it without trying. The power of this field of unity. And it's easy, effortless, and it works. You need a legitimate teacher, a teacher trained by Maharishi to teach just as he taught. There were so many people learning, he said, I got to multiply myself, and he taught teachers to teach. A legitimate teacher of Transcendental meditation. You can learn it in 4 days, 4 to 7 days. You meet the teacher, introductory lecture, ask a bunch of questions, get the answers, decide if you want to do it. You go to the teacher, you learn the teaching, get the mantra, and learn how to use that mantra. Have your first meditation. Now you've had that experience. Now you have 3 follow-up meetings to ask questions based on these experiences. It's a familiar experience, but a unique experience. Powerfully beautiful. And all these questions come up. The purpose of the follow-up meetings to make sure you're meditating correctly. Then you've got a technique for the rest of your life. One that's going to just unfold more and more of you.
My little son would like to know what is the message about the movie Mulholland Drive is.
Yeah, I don't say the message. That's what I was trying to tell you. Who wants to know this? The son, your son, yeah. There's a lot of people's sons that want to know this. But the son, bless his heart, he needs to just think about it. And maybe see it again, but think about it, and an answer will come. An answer will come. It's not really I like to frighten him. I like to, based on the ideas, make a world that can only be visited through this language of cinema. So the most beautiful thing is we go into a theater and the lights go down and the curtain opens and we get to go into a world. And all cinema is like this, a world there. We go in and have these experiences. It's based on the ideas we fall in love with and how we translate them, how we make that world, and the experience of making the world and catching ideas and realizing them is so beautiful to me. But as I said earlier, as the world changes, cinema changes. So 1930s cinema, for instance, we all know, you see a 1930s movie, it feels like that time. The sensibility is of that time. Even if it's a period piece, it feels like a 30 period piece. 70s film, 60s film, all different depending on the world. As the world changes, cinema will change. But it's not that I want to torment anybody. I've fallen in love with these ideas. I work on them and work on them, work on them until every detail feels correct to me. And I'm hoping they'll feel correct to others. And others will, appreciate that experience, have an experience, and come to their own conclusion. What? One more question, he says.
Yeah. Here, back here.
Yes.
I have a question. Mr. Lynch, I wanted to ask you what kind of relationship you have to Roy Orbison, because as well in your film Blue Velvet, there were several songs from him, and also in Mulholland Drive from Barbara.
Yes, Roy Orbison, the Big O. I, grew up in the 50s, and I loved Roy Orbison then. I was in a cab with Kyle MacLachlan, and we were going through Central Park. We just had a rehearsal with Isabella Rossellini, and we were headed to the airport to go to Wilmington, North Carolina, where Dino had a studio. Going through Central Park, on the cab radio came the song Crying. And I hear this song and I say, oh, this is so fantastic. I wonder if it lives in Blue Velvet. Because all the thinking then was on Blue Velvet. And I got down to Wilmington, got Roy Orbison's greatest hits, started listening to it, loved it Crying once again, but found In Dreams, which just lit my brain up. Fireworks in the brain. I said, this is it. Fell in love with In Dreams by Roy Orbison. It finally got the rights, got it in the film, and later, after the film was released, Roy Orbison saw this film, and he was kind of devastated how In Dreams was used. He was a little bit upset because this song meant something totally different to him, very personal song. So, but his friends said, Roy, this is kind of a cool thing, and please see it again if you can, in a different light. And bless his heart, Roy went a second time and saw the film, and he came out and he said, you guys are right. This is okay with me. This is really kind of good. Later, Roy lost somehow legally his rights to his original songs, and he re-recorded his songs just to try to make some money. And a guy, Jeff Ayeroff at Virgin Records, told Roy, don't release this thing. We'll work with you and do something else, but don't release this album. And but if you want to do it, we'll do it. And so the Virgin Records became Roy's friend. Jeff Ayeroff called me and said, would you oversee a music video we're making of In Dreams? And I said, sure. One thing led to another, and I said to Jeff, I said, this remakes are not so good. Don't let Roy release this album. And Jeff said, well, it's too late, but if you want to, David, you could go in the studio with Roy and just try to do a remake as good as you can with Roy for In Dreams. I said, are you kidding me? I'm there. So I get to go into the studio with the great Roy Orbison, talk to him, and great musicians, and Roy's voice was better than ever. And we redid In Dreams. It's pretty good, but not as good as the original. And we worked, though, and bonded. And Roy was very much into working with wood. So he talked about working with wood a lot, talked about music, and had a great time. And along about 5 or 6 o'clock, I needed to go off and meditate. So I went up to the engineer and I asked the engineer, do you have a small room where I could go do my meditation? And the guy said, yeah, we'll get you a place. Barbara Orbison, Roy's wife, came and said, what's going on? And I said, no, I'm just going to do my meditating. And she said, what kind of meditation are you doing? And I said, I'm doing Transcendental meditation. She said, Roy and I do Transcendental meditation. And so we went into this little room, and I got to meditate with the great Roy Orbison. Thank you all very much.